Let's do
So,
it.
yeah. So again, I'm going to start with the clinical insights. And the first one that I want to share is about a 11-year-old female. So a little girl. And technically, she was not even a patient of mine. I take care of her mom. We have a phenomenal story, and I'll explain to you why I'm sharing this story. Because it's not always just about these amazing results we get, although I do love, and I think we should celebrate results more frequently, yet nonetheless. So the mom comes in and says, Doc, I hope this is okay. Yet I gave my daughter the ashwagandha forte that you gave to me for my hormones. So I gave it to her as part of a protocol for her thyroid function and also helping things. There's a little gland in the base of in the front base of your brain called your hypothalamus gland. And we often refer to that gland as the mother of your hormones. It's the one that's controlling and coordinating all essentially your endocrine system, especially your thyroid, your adrenal glands, your ovaries. So it has a lot to do with your emotions as well. And me and the mom had this conversation on many levels. In any ways, her daughter, lo and behold, and I didn't know this. So she tells me that her daughter tells her that she's crying for no reason. In her daughter's own words, I think she says that she does not know why she's always crying. Yes, she's aware of it, and 11 years old, and she's always crying. So her mom chooses to give her some ashwagandha forte, just a little bit of a lower dose than I gave her. She's an adult. She gave it to her as a child. And I'm sharing this because that's the beauty of herbs. It's not like these are drugs. You're not going to overdose somebody. You're not going to harm someone. And that's why I wanted to share that with that part of it. So she gives her a dose that she thinks is good for her, for an 11-year-old girl. And I have no idea how much she weighed. And within 2 days, she comes back and says, Mom, I'm back.
An 11-year-old with that kind of awareness. Wow.
Yeah, that's the fascinating part of it, that the girl had that awareness to know that she wasn't herself and she was always crying. And then all of a sudden she says she's back. So I share that for a couple of reasons. So I really saluted the mom. It was definitely a high five moment. And what was nice about it, I could also see the personal pride that the mother had. Because this is what I know about all moms. All they want is the best for their children. And as a result of it, sometimes they take the best options that they know about or that they have, even though they know that those options may not be awesome for them. They might be a drug, it might be a medication, and they know they don't want their 11-year-old on a drug or on a medication, and damn, they don't want them on birth control pill at 11. And I'm saying that because that was an option. That was one of her doctor's recommendations. She hasn't even had her cycle, and it was a suggestion to put on birth control. Can't make this stuff up. Anyways, yes. So I know that the moms out there are always just wanting to do what's best. If we love someone, we want them to feel good. We never want to see someone uncomfortable emotionally, physically, spiritually, anything. So the beauty here is that the mom has taken the time, energy, and effort to educate herself. And just like we were saying about before, now she gets to spread the love and share it with her daughter. And she had this essence of this like pride about her, which was fantastic. And I love every bit of it. And really, I think I want to share this most of all with our listeners. And just to remind everyone, when you hear all about these herbs and these vitamins, these minerals, and these strategies, do not take the kids out of these strategies. Truthfully, often kids respond so much better because one, they don't have all these built up beliefs and non-beliefs. And then secondly, they don't have to work through as many toxins that we've built up in our bodies. And that's a lot of what's inhibiting a lot of our functional changes is our body has to work with so many literally toxins within the body. So don't leave the kiddos out. High five to the mom for taking pride in herself. Remember that children can respond and often respond even better with a lot of these natural remedies. And I think last but not least, let's make sure that we continue to hear the children and support them in knowing their own bodies. I don't think when I was 11, I don't think I had that wherewithal.
All right, I don't know that I did either, but what an amazing human obviously this kiddo is. And to have 2 days, in 2 days to be back to herself, that's real magic. And props to the mom for like probably a bit of her innate wisdom as well. Just having a sense that something helped her is also going to be in like service to her daughter too.
What I love about every bit of it is now it's given the 11-year-old an experience that she felt better, that she functions better, And it was as a result of it taking action, which is wonderful. She had the awareness of it, and then also the mom. So I already know the mom, and she will continue to do a deep dive. She's gonna do a deep dive, and she will become an official weirdo, which is like an awesome thing.
Welcome to the weirdo team. Happy to have you all.
Yes. Yeah. So that was clinical insight number one, and I have another one, really very different. Yet I think a lot of people are going to be able to relate to this, and I know especially as a practitioner, my practitioners listening, listen closely, because this is a very common thing that shows up in doctors' offices. It doesn't matter what kind of doctor you are, this shows up, and it's often it can be a very challenging type of personality to work with. So the 54-year-old female who essentially she's mad. And what she's mad at is that her body is not, in this particular scenario, it was tennis elbow. Her elbow and her wrist hurt. And a lot of it is for her, at least for her thought, was that she's playing tennis and she hurt her elbow and she hurt her wrist. And she's mad. And what I mean by mad, she doesn't want to be there. She does not want to be there taking care of herself. She's made that crystal clear. She doesn't want to get adjusted. She doesn't want to do acupuncture. She doesn't want to do sound wave therapy. She doesn't want to do any of it, because all of it is an inconvenience to her. And just to that point, I want to start a little bit of a conversation and say, listen, don't bail out on your body that fast. Part of the conversation I had with her, because she said, oh, it's so hard to take time. Now, mind you, and this isn't always the situation for everyone, mind you, she does not have a job. Her kids are grown and out of school. And I'm not judging that, yet we make up a story about what's really hard and what's not hard. And I've seen hard things. I've seen people that can't walk. I've seen people that can't see and not whatnot. That's hard stuff. That's hard living. Making an appointment for yourself to take better care of yourself is not really that hard. It may be different, true, but it's not difficult. So don't give up on yourself that fast. Unless I don't have any less compassion for her. In fact, it makes me try to be more compassionate, because somewhere along the way, someone forgot to, or I don't even know where this comes from yet. Someone forgot her to tell her it's okay to take care of yourself. Like, you're allowed to allot time to love on yourself. And that's what it really.
I think you using that word love, like that's a bit of what I'm thinking of here. And we talk about that a lot on the show, because it's an important element of healing is love. And I see one side of it as like, it's an activity she loves, right? And it's something she really wants to be doing and she can't do it. But if you just take that love that you have for, like in this example, might be playing tennis, and you simply shift all of that energy to yourself, loving yourself, it's not the easiest bridge to cross at all times. It's a reminder, right?
Yeah, it is a reminder. And so this is what I would suggest for everyone out there, because maybe you're not a practitioner, but you have someone in your life that kind of is always, I'm going to use the word, complaining about their ailments, and yet they're unwilling to do anything about them. And I put everyone in this category as the ones who want to help and save everybody. We are trying to give them suggestions. We're giving them recommendations. We're giving them instructions on how to fix themselves. And that's where we have to stop doing that, even as doctors. So doctors, listen to me. I'm not trying to tell you not to help your patients, but this is where we have to shift our conversations from instructions to questions. We have to be masters at asking these individuals questions about who they are and what they want and what they're doing, instead of giving them information they don't want to hear. So in this particular situation, I had to ask some really tough questions. I say they're tough, but they're not. They seem in the moment, while we're standing face to face, they seem like bold questions, because I'll ask questions like this. And this is real. This is how it went today. Whitney, that was not her name. Whitney, do you take good care of yourself? You don't have to answer this, but this is how it started. Do you think your body should feel good if you drink wine every night, if you don't stretch, and then you go out and play tennis for 2 to 3 hours a day? Do you think that at 54 years old and not doing any type of stretching and doing any type of meditation and anything to serve your body, that it should perform well on a tennis court? In the moment, you can imagine we're standing face to face, and I'm trying to come from love and compassion. They sound tough, and they are. So in the event you have someone in your life that is complaining, those are the tough questions that they need to hear, but we can't be attached to the answer. So what was really fascinating in this situation, we had those tough conversations. We proceeded to get adjusted, which was awesome. And then we did acupuncture. And in the acupuncture session, of course, I do a lot for tennis elbow. That's kind of the easy part. And literally her elbow fell, but she's like, "What'd you do?" And there was a part of me that didn't want it to work that fast because that's not how healing always takes place. What I found was that I did this yin protocol, and the yin protocol is very common. We shift the pendulum from that fight or flight, which is an angry state, or anger falls into the fight or flight state, that bound up, it's a yang state. There's yin and yang in Chinese medicine, and we shift it. So for 30 minutes with pins, she couldn't go anywhere. She had pins all over her body. So she's basically pinned down. For 30 minutes, it did a beautiful yin protocol, open up the heart, get some liver chi flowing, get everything kind of moving and flowing. Passed out, which is great. It's very common to fall asleep. And she woke up, and for a couple moments, she wasn't mad. It was nice. Yeah.
That's a beautiful thing. And I really want to applaud her that she stayed. You asked her these tough questions. She answered them, and then we proceed. It's opening a different doorway, right? Because I think we have this pattern maybe in friendships and relationships and within families. There's questions you ask, and there's those that you don't. So you can live a long time and not have anyone kind of ask you these health questions, why do you think the way you think?
Yeah, and in all of that, there's a couple of things that go through my mind. So I risk, and there's definitely a risk there for me, right? So I might risk my reputation. She might leave my office and say I'm an asshole, and might lose her as a client, and she might tell everyone up and down the street that I'm an absolute jerk, right? That's a possibility. And yet there also bears this other responsibility. I think all of us as practitioners, or even just family members, that what if we don't ask them those tough questions? What if we don't ask our friends, our brothers, our mothers, our fathers, our spouses those tough questions? What is really happening? You know what happens? Because I've seen it too much. I've been practicing for 25 years, and one of the things I noticed that if I back off, if I let my guard down, if I decide not to hold the line for her, someone will come along and offer a magic wand. And the magic wand is a quick fix. And there's no such thing as a quick fix when it comes. There isn't. You yes, you can get some symptom relief like we just talked about, tennis elbow, but there's no quick fix when it comes to ill health. And things like tennis elbow, just long story short, the reason most people develop golfers and tennis elbow has nothing to do with their elbows. It has everything to do with their posture. It's a pectoralis tightness. So the pec muscles, your chest muscles get tight, the shoulders roll in, and then the whole arm rotates inward as an internal rotation. And then you put a certain force into it, and all that force drives into the elbow, whether it be your tennis racket, your golf club. And then all of a sudden the tendons at that area become inflamed. So that's kind of the how and why it ends up there. Yet really, we have to be careful if we're not careful and we just try to appease them. Someone who has the magic quick fix formula, and it might be a surgery, and there's no turning back after that, and it might be a certain drug or medication, and then they get farther and farther from the truth and farther and farther from the root cause. So for all of you listening, if that story made sense, and if you've dealt with that individual in your life who complains it doesn't want to take action, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Become a master at asking questions and hold the line, lead them and love them. That's it.
It's a beautiful thing, Bart. I am glad that you asked her the questions and that she stayed. That's great. Beautiful. Bart, I have to tell you, we've got some really beautiful questions coming in from the viewers tonight.
Let's tackle some of those first.
Should we? Okay, let's get started on those.
I'll let you just kind of moderate it, and I'll just take it.
Beautiful. All right, here we go. I have a lymph node on my neck that gets swollen frequently. What could be causing this, and should I be concerned?
Okay, so I'll walk through this, and of course, anytime we're giving information here on the Health Made Simple podcast, know that it's not direct doctor patient communication. So always check with your doctor. Know that this is just data, so I can inform everyone. And truth is, I kind of have to say that, I would never really think that someone would use this as pure doctor advice for themselves. But I still have to say those things. All right. Anyway, so you have a lymph node that's on your neck. And did I hear that it's coming and going?
It sounds like swollen frequently, which I
Okay.
think maybe means pulsation, right?
Yeah. So it would imply that it goes away. So here's what let's just talk about what a lymph node does. So a lymph node is really where things go to die, which is pretty cool. So first, I would just say swollen lymph nodes are an indication that your body's having a health action. So that's cool. Instead of thinking I'm sick, I have a swollen lymph node, I want you to think from this point forward, I'm having a health action right now. In what it's doing, it's either attacking a bacteria or attacking something viral. So it's really cool. What happens is these bacteria or virus come into the body sends them into the lymph node. And the lymph node, they're tricky little suckers. They're usually bulbous. They're kind of like squished up like an M&M almost, or they could be a little bit thicker than that. And they have one-way doors. So they have a valve. Once it goes in, you can't get back out the same way you came in. So once something goes in there, now it's vulnerable. It's locked in there. And lymph node's going to keep it there. And here's where the beauty of the innate wisdom. This is one of the things that just is so amazing about the human body. So it's locked in there. It sends a message up to the brain and says, "What do you got there?" He goes, "Well, I got this boogly woogly man." All right. Well, I'm going to give you the weapons to kill the big boogly woogly man. And then it sends back a message of what types of white blood cells to send. If you have a bacteria, there's certain ones. If you have a virus, there's certain ones. So the body. Then inside of this, we'll call it it's like the cage, like where the MMA fighters, they're trapped in the cage and they can't get out. And then these white blood cells go in there and they fight. And in the fight, as the body is sending more and more of these white blood cells, it swells up. That's the swelling you're experiencing. That's your army. That's your health action going to work for you. It goes in there, it starts killing things. Sometimes it can be a little tender, swollen and tender at the same time. There's a fist fight going on. It kills off the bacteria, kills off the virus, and then it waits a minute, pumps the brakes, and goes, "Oh, we're going to make sure everybody in here is dead." And then after that, it slowly lets it out, it goes back out into the system, and eventually circulated back. The liver kicks it back out of the body as if it was never there, which is really cool. So if you are having lymph nodes that show up, they go away, they show up, go away, most likely you're being exposed to something. And it could be a bacteria, it could be virus, it could be an environmental toxin. It could be the type of, literally, if it's happening frequently, you might really check your environmental toxins in your house, like the paint, the laundry detergent that you use, the sprays, the perfume you're putting on your body, the candles, all of that stuff could be lighting up your immune system. And then, so the other side, do you have an area of concern? Well, always, if you're concerned, make sure you go to your doctor and get it checked out. That's a no-brainer. Yet really, there are some key things. And one of the factors when it comes to lymph nodes specifically, and this is not to ever panic anyone, you always get it checked out in your question, but there are some ways to kind of predetermine the status of that lymph node. So if it's swollen and it's hot and it came on, you feel like you got a head cold or something like that, and it came on and it's swollen, and it's a little bit warm and it's tender to the touch, that's a great health action. Sometimes if you find a swollen lymph node, it's hard, non-tender, and non-movable. That's typically one of the ones we kind of scratch our heads, go, all right, further evaluation should be done here. And then, of course, if there's any, we call them lightning rod moments, where all of a sudden multiple chains fill up, boom, and they get really abnormally large, of course, get right to your doctor, make sure you get checked out. So it sounds in this scenario, if it's coming and going, that's your health actions coming and going. And truth is, we're exposed to stuff all the time. I'll go as far as this way and say, I would say that any kid under 12, and I check all of them. Parents don't always know I'm doing it, but I'm always checking to see where they're at. So I want to feel and see where they are for the next visit. Every kid under 12 years old has swollen lymph node. Any given time I see them, they're always being exposed. And the beauty is they can come and go without anyone really knowing, because there's constantly an exposure. So that's also, those lymph nodes is in the initial phase of how our bodies start to develop a bigger immunity, a robust immune system, and all these different antibodies. It traps it in there. And if they doesn't know what the boogly woogly man is, and he goes, "I don't know who this is." Well, let's keep throwing things at it. it figures out what it needs to beat it up. And then it kind of makes this imprint, along with things like the spleen and the thymus gland, all these ones we hear about that sometimes are like extra body parts. They're all in conjunction to help us develop this very, very robust immune system. And hopefully, and most of the time, it's happening behind the scenes and we don't even know.
What a great way to view this practice that I think so many of us learned of, like, it's our first self-diagnostic tool. We start to kind of feel around our neck, and to think of it not like, oh no, but really like, oh yeah, look how awesome my body is. Like, I am getting stronger. This is a health action. Just like observing how powerful we are as human beings.
Yeah, and then of course, if you get that signal and you have these swollen lymph nodes around your throat, perfect time to go, oh, what should I do? Maybe I'll take it down. I'll go to bed early tonight, etc.
Yeah, take it down a little early, some water, like respond to it, right? Not
Yeah.
fighting against it.
If obviously if they come into the clinic and I notice them or palpate them, there are, and I'll share this, especially we're kind of going into that season where we're going to see a lot of lymph. You're going to see a lot of people like it's kind of head and cold season. I don't even know what it is. Or flu season, right? Or did that go
It's
away?
November 1st, Bart. Can you believe it?
No, it's wild. November 1st. Yeah. November is one of the best months. It is the best month of the year, by the way.
It must be because it's Dr. Bob's birthday, right?
Correct. It is Dr. Bob's birthday. That is
But
right.
is it also your birthday?
Might be. Yes.
Maybe.
Might be. So with that, the swollen lymph node, so because we don't know if it's we don't know specifically and don't need to know if it's bacterial or viral, our bodies are going to take care of that for us. There is a great herbal concoction along with a vitamin mineral concoction that I typically say, this is what we need on our home health medicine cabinet, right? Like our healthy medicine cabinet, one called Angiographis Complex, which I've spoken to a lot here on the Health Made Simple show, along with Conjuplex. So these are the ones that when you feel that swollen lymph node, you got that little thing going on in your throat, your ears, you're stuffed up. These are the ones you go to right away. Those herbs, and we've talked a fair amount about herbs in the last couple of shows, super fast acting, holy basil, angiographis, echinacea, they elicit the response of the white blood cell system. They modulate it. So they make sure that it doesn't get too high or too low. And then the other one called Conjuplex, which by its name doesn't mean anything to us. That's where the calcium lactate is. That's where the ribonucleic acid. That's where the vitamin C is. That's where the thymus gland material is. So it's a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant product. The two of those, one we're activating and one we're feeding. And if you have those on your home health medicine cabinet, you're in good shape when the time comes.
That's a beautiful thing. I wonder if we might, those two products, the Angiographis and the Conjuplex, those are ones that not only we have in our medicine cabinets, but the ones we take like traveling, no matter what, like wherever we're headed, just have something in the pocket for if you wake up a little scratchy, something little, just feeling a little off, right?
100%. That home health medicine cabinet, that's again, that I would travel with that one. If there was anything that you should have going into this holiday season, we're entering a very interesting phase, this holiday phase, and I think we had a question coming a little bit about that. So, is that right? Do we have let's jump to that question?
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, let's smooth on into this awesome question that we got, which is touching on the holidays. So with the holidays coming up, November 1, who even knows? With the holidays coming up, do you have any tips to stay on track and healthy? Love this question.
Yeah, I love it too, especially the on track part, because that tells me that they have a strategy, they're choosing to be in a direction, not taking it by chance, or choosing to get in direction, and also recognize the vulnerabilities that we have in this 60-day window. So right now, November 1st to January 1st is the most destructive 60 days to humans here in our country, probably around the world, but definitely in our country. I'm going to say this over and over for the next 60 days because we know it's coming. And here's how profound this is. And these stats might change a little bit, but I don't think they've changed for a decade straight. The number one day of the year for heart attacks in our country, day after Thanksgiving. The number two day after Christmas. The number 3 day for heart attacks in our country, New Year's Day. What's the commonality here? Overeating, over drinking, too much stress. Mm-hmm. And we know it's coming. These are also the number one days for ER visits in our country. We know it's coming. So every one of us knows, man, I overeat. I feel like crap. Overeat, undersleep. I think that's another huge one through the holidays. So we're creating more of a toxic situation. And I also think the holidays, I love the holidays. I always have. Like they're wonderful, but I also understand that they can be stressful. We have loved ones that have passed, and that those bring up certain emotions. Sometimes we're overcommitted, maybe we overspend. Yet in general, I think the holidays are fantastic, but I also think they can be stressful. So I don't want to say they're stressful because it sounds like they're not fun, but because I love them. I love that people are in a loving spirit. Yet I think sometimes we make it too hard. We make the events too hard. They don't have to be that hard. So I'll encourage everyone. So a couple of things with that. To travel through the holidays and to navigate the holidays, first thing I'm going to say is this, and we'll get into the vitamins and herbs in just a moment, but be the individual who recognizes where your triggers are. Recognize where you get off track. And that's why I love the way that they phrase this question. So if going to cocktail parties, and as a result of it, you might drink during the week, and then you eat a little bit during the week, and then you go to bed later. Wow, that trifecta right there, troublesome. And really, when I say downregulation of health, it is the fastest weight gaining phase that we have of those 2 months are typically equivalent to the rest of the year in terms of how much weight people gain. And what's kind of odd about that, technically based on our DNA, because we're now into the winter season, or what we call the dark winter, once we enter that phase, we should actually be in almost a fasting period where we're starting to lose weight, kind of like a bear, right? Bear gets big and fat and plump and happy over the summer. And then once we get into that November, December cold, it starts to wither away. It starts to, because there's not as much food available. So our DNA would prefer us leaning down. We're doing just the opposite. So
we have a lot of case studies, right? Like every year we've lived so far, the holidays have happened. So we may have a little bit of data to like have a sense of like what these triggers are.
Yeah. And I'm as guilty as that, especially past Thanksgiving. That's always been the one that's probably the most detrimental to me. But I had 2 strikes against me. There's Thanksgiving.
Well, is it related to football? I'm just curious.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So that formula for me, having copious amounts of food around while my team is playing football, is just not a good formula. So I don't know.
So do you have a hack, Bart?
Do I have a hack? Well, not a successful one yet. So I do better. This much I can say. I've done better in these last 5 years than I've ever had before. And yet still I'll find myself at the end of the night being like, whoa, why did I eat so much? And again, and it's also a good reminder when they happen, those infrequent moments, because I don't want to go back there. So I'm already starting to think about, that's my trigger. When I put my stressor in relative to food. So I'm crystal clear that I'm a stress eater. So if I have my football team on and there's copious amounts of food, not a great formula. So I'll have to continue to work on doing the best that I can during that time. So,
but then so the day after, right, there's a little bit of this, like you play, you pay. So we do a little fasting, right?
Yeah. And that's always been the strategy. And I talk about, that here on the Health Made Simple show, that we can swing the pendulum into our favor. And what does that mean? So if I know I eat copious amounts of food, why don't I take a break the next day? And I'm not talking about going for a 5 or 10 mile run to try to burn it off and punish my body, right? I'm talking about, hey, let's just not bring in calories until later in the day. Let my body burn this all up. Maybe get some exercise, and typically I do yoga on Friday morning. And I typically will work as well. So let's burn up all this excess food that's sitting around in the body, get my body to regulate the blood sugars again, and then have a good, reasonable meal the following evening. So it's not uncommon for me that I'll do a longer fast the next day, 20, 22 hours, something like that. And my body's used to that. It's still a stressor, but it's used to it. So I love that strategy. If you play, you pay. And it's just a way to hold yourself accountable. Because the truth is, once we open the gate for high blood sugar, lots and lots of food, even if it's good, healthy food, you bring too much food and your blood sugars will go high, and then they're going to drop faster, which then makes us want to eat more. So you're going to have to deal with some level of discipline and some level of discomfort. You're going to have to get into that uncomfortable phase of saying, no, there's no way that I've used up all that food from yesterday, right? And like have that kind of funny moment with your body, like there's no way I ate copious amounts of turkey or whatever it may be. There's no way that it's
Totally.
all been used up. And know that you're going to be safe and you're going to be okay if you just pause before you start bringing more in.
Beautiful. So let's say you have an intention to stay on track for the 60 days and 40 days into it, you have like a night, you just hop back on track, right?
Not back on. So, I'm going to add to this a little bit. So, one, also knowing that because we know these 60 days are hardest, this is not the time when I recommend to try any new programs. This is not when I say, hey, all right, we're going to cleanse through Thanksgiving. No. A nice concept or starting a cleanse right after Thanksgiving. No, wait until the new year. That's when we launch ours. And it makes mental and physical sense to commit to a program when you know all of this stuff is over with. So you don't set yourself up for failure and you are enjoying the holidays. So, and it's not a never, never situation where you never have this, you never have that, where you're going to have some, certain things you play, you play the game a little bit, but knowing that there will be that line being drawn in the sand. And that is January 1st. Like literally you draw that on January 1st, the day after, New Year's Day, done with the crap. And then we kick off the cleanse. It'll probably be a day or two after that this year. So push that out a little bit. So, when the beatdown stops and when you kind of fire things up. So if that pendulum swings, not so much in your favor where you're getting a little bit out of balance, which during these 60 days, it's pretty typical. You have something in the wings that's coming, that's going to get you right back on track. And then real quickly, it's going to sound like a little bit of a repeat here, but for the holidays, 3 things that I'm recommend. The 2 I already mentioned, Angiographis and Conjuplex, have them available nonstop. Again, we're going to overeat, overdrink, put more toxins to our body, get more tired than we typically are, a little bit less rest and more stress. Those 2 for your immune response, wonderful. The other, this is a huge one. So listen closely, is making sure you have a digestive enzyme ready and available at all times. So when we start to eat like this, we eat a little bit more here and there, a little bit more sugar over there, a little bit more cheese and crackers over here, a little, whatever it may be. Making sure we digest it is a huge part of how we're going to feel afterwards. So there's a digestive enzyme we've talked about here a lot. Again, it's called Zypan, and bring it everywhere you're going to eat, and help your
Game
body.
changer.
Game changer.
Zypan.
Literally, it's like the secret to get through the holidays. Zypan, the digestive enzyme, will help you navigate breaking down your foods so things don't sit around too long and too hard and change, and everything was what we just talked about, from digestion to blood sugar level. So Zypan, your digestive enzyme, keep it real simple. That one is a game changer. Know that down the road, you're gonna draw the line in the sand, and your job is just to do the best that you can through the holidays, and then really paying attention to what your triggers are.
That is a beautiful strategy to make it through these 60 days. And I know that we're still like 2 months away from the cleanse, but I just have like one very brief question.
Yep.
Can anyone cleanse?
Of course. Yes. The answer is yes. I would say this. So I don't want my pregnant mommies to be cleansing. I don't want food restriction in those moments. So I certainly would put them on a whole food diet. Absolutely. I wouldn't put any restriction there, but yes, anyone can cleanse, and from anywhere. I don't know if that was really what you meant. So yes, you don't have to be here locally. If you're listening to this podcast and you live in, I don't know, on the West Coast, the East Coast, anyone can cleanse. You'll start to probably see some of our emails or our Facebook or Instagram, promotions. Yeah, get your order in early. We'll start that in December, and of course, we'll mail it out to you. And then there's a live Facebook group. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of community. There's a lot of, it's really a lot of fun. As much as a cleanse possibly can be fun, we make it fun.
Yes, it really is fun. And yes, it's a cleanse. We would love to have you guys. All right, Bart, we have a couple more questions here. I want to make sure we get to them because they're so great. So here is our next one. I've been feeling very sluggish lately. I think it's my thyroid. How do I find out?
Okay. So when it comes to your thyroid, and sluggish is definitely a symptom of potentially a thyroid dysfunction. Sluggish could be a lot of things. So let me throw out some of the other symptoms that could involve or be involved around a sluggish thyroid, then I'll get to answering that. So Often when the thyroid function is starting to slow down, or what we call hypothyroidism, where your thyroid is not producing your thyroid hormones appropriately. And the thyroid hormones are incredibly important for human function. They help other organs function better. They help clean the blood. They help regulate your metabolism. They help your brain fire. So there's so many things that the thyroid does for us. And when I say it does, it's really about the hormone thyroxine, T4, that it produces. So with that being said, there are symptoms of a sluggish thyroid. One could be weight gain. Sluggishness is often a common thing that people have when their thyroid starts to slow down. Lack of motivation. Brain fog is often right up there with any. Physically, if someone's has had hypothyroidism or a sluggish thyroid for a while, clinically, you can start to recognize the outer third of the eyebrow starts to go away. That's kind of classic. And as a clinicians, we always look for that to see kind of how long that journey's been going on for them. By the time it's to that, it's been going on for a minute or two. And then we get into everything that could be different. A big one will be temperature sensitivity to the hot and cold, and often to even noises. And even things like smells become very sensitive. You can be hypersensitive to external environmental things like perfumes and candles. So those are all symptoms of hypothyroidism. And it can get a little confusing because some of the symptoms that are hyperthyroid function, where it was something we call Graves' disease, where we're actually functioning too high, there's oftentimes that an individual can have both. And that, Whitney, is why we need to test. And the testing that we do for thyroid function, although I do believe it's getting better and more practitioners are getting on board or really getting educated, leveling up about what to test, there's still a large section of the general medical profession that's not testing the thyroid properly enough to do an accurate diagnosis, and certainly not one to give any good suggestions or recommendations. So when we do that testing, we want what's called a complete thyroid panel. And I'll list the majority of them right now. And then, of course, if someone was interested, you could call our office. Listen, we will email you that list and you can give it to your doctor. We don't care. But if you're going to get your thyroid tested, not getting what I'm about to talk about tested it leaves you in a situation where the doctor cannot accurately diagnose your thyroid. All right, so here's a couple of them. So you definitely want T4 and T3, both of those totals tested. More importantly, well, not more importantly, as important, we want something called T3 free and T3 uptake. And we're going to go a little farther. It is absolutely important to get something called your antibodies tested, your TPO and TGO. Absolutely important, because hidden behind the scenes, especially for women, about 50% of the women will have something called Hashimoto's. And that's an autoimmune condition that's affecting the thyroid. And if they're not being tested and you're just letting that run, because you can actually have Hashimoto's with normal thyroid labs. This is where it gets really tricky. Someone says, I know, based on everything I've read about thyroid, I must have a thyroid function. I got brain fog. I got weight gain out of the blue. My diet hasn't changed. I'm still exercising. All these things are going this way. And we check with thyroid panel and it looks fine, except they didn't test for the antibodies. Here's another interesting symptom. And this is why lab testing or collecting data is so important. Your low thyroid will drive your cholesterol up. And it's also one of the reasons I often tell people you can't just do your cholesterol panel without looking at the rest of the body and the endocrine system, because it works together. We have to continue to start to think bigger. If you go on cholesterol lowering medications, but the cause of your high cholesterol is because you have a hypothyroidism, you're in double trouble, because now you're going to start to get rid of the lipids that are really there to start to build up and make hormones, and you're taking them away. It gets just landslide. Anyways, so T3, there's another marker that I think is imperative to test, because for this question, it talked about being sluggish. And there's a marker called reverse T3. So the whole thyroid panel could look normal, or it can be even more often, it'll be out of whack. Not enough T4, not enough T3. And of course, before I forget it, there's TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone. It's probably the most common marker. And that's what most doctors are checking. They check that, maybe T4, and that's about it. But when all done and said, there's about 8 or 9 markers you want to get checked. So reverse T3 will let the clinician know, the doctor know, is all of this dysfunction caused by too much stress? And that's an important thing to know. That might lead that doctor. So in sluggishness, and oftentimes with my peeps, if they're going to test their thyroid, often based on what the conversation they're telling me, if they're sluggish or tired, they're waning gait, they've been under stress, they're not sleeping, they're waking up tired, man, we got to run an adrenal panel as well, because the adrenals and the thyroid work hand in hand. The thyroid is never operating solo, never. It's either thyroid liver, thyroid gut, thyroid adrenal, and it could be even thyroid ovary. So we want to know the way the rest of the body is functioning there. So there's a complete thyroid panel that needs to be tested. And then by testing that, you'll know, and testing the, as many other things as you could in the moment. But if you just do your thyroid panel, you will be in good position for you and your doctor to sit down and have a good conversation about, is this something I need to address, and then how to address it.
I think that it's really cool that we have pretty easy access to these tests these days. I've just popped our information into the chat should anyone want to reach out. Again, we're happy to help you guys thyroid and adrenal style. And so in the case that you do receive these test results back and you want to make some changes, and even if you just feel that this is speaking to you, I wonder, Bart, if there are some lifestyle changes or things that we might even change pretty quick here to have our thyroid be functioning better.
Yes, not only are they're mandatory. And that's so you can't fix your thyroid by just taking a medication, because that's not what made it go wrong. And it's so important that everyone really kind of hears it. If you're on thyroid medication, yet you haven't altered your lifestyle, and I'll talk about some of those things. So one of the most important would be sleep, and really trying to align yourself with the circadian rhythm. Going to bed when it starts to get dark, or right after it gets dark, and then getting up with the light. So that would be a good target right there. Getting the bad fats out. What are the bad fats? Those are all the seed oils, the canola oil, number one. They got to go. They're disruptors to the body. There's a lot of what we call endocrine disruptors out there. Plastics and perfumes and candles and paint. So someone moves into a new house can really throw their thyroid just through the roof. And it creates all other disruptions within the body and the endocrine system. So you really want to take a look at the whole picture of all the toxins that are coming into the body. No doubt, and I know listeners know what I'm going to say next, gluten's got to go.
Gluten's got to go. It's always got to go.
Yeah, it's got to go. It's pro-inflammatory. Almost always it's going to downregulate thyroid function. So if you want to have a good metabolic system, especially through your hormones and through your endocrine system, we got to get rid of the things that slow it down, and anything that creates inflammation in the body, like gluten. Dairy would be also nice to kind of kick out if you could. Good sleep, good foods. What do you want to eat?
Go ahead. No.
There's some foods that we kind of want to lean into. Of course, you want good, healthy protein so you can build good body parts, right? The proteins are building blocks. Yeah, there's other subtleties, things like Brazil nuts. One of the reasons that we often can't convert our thyroid hormones from T4 to T3 is because we don't have enough selenium in the body. So if you eat a Brazil nut or two, like 1 or 2 nuts a day, that gives you enough selenium. And I know this sounds crazy, but a lot of times that's enough. It's because there'll be a deficiency, a nutrient deficiency, and we can often fix it through lifestyle and nutritional stuff. And I shouldn't say just the selenium or just the Brazil nut, but taking out the bad fats, getting the sleep down. And we don't have to do a lot of the medications, and oftentimes very minimal supplementation. There are some phenomenal herbs, and everybody's a little bit different. Earlier in the show, I talked about probably the single best herb out there when it comes to thyroid function. It's a home run, is ashwagandha. And that's often what I'll use in my protocols. Yet without going too deep into that, the focus on sleep, circadian rhythm, getting as close as you can to that, watching the high sugar foods, watching the bad fats, and then all of the toxins that we don't always know about. The plastic bottles, the creams and lotions we put on for a bottle. Remember, your thyroid is going to be involved in metabolic activity. So everything that you're bringing into your body is going to get pushed into that system, which means it's going to affect the thyroid.
Totally. I was really lucky when I moved to Florida to learn that coconut oil is this natural kind of sunscreen, and it's also something I eat. So thinking about the things you put on your body is food grade. It's been a real transition shift for me and an awesome thing to explore. It seems weird at first. I'm only saying that because that was my experience, and then it becomes super natural.
Yeah, and that's a great point. In the beginning, often there'll be those things are different. Again, they're not difficult. They just seem weird or whatever may be. And great point there. Coconut oil, fantastic. If you make a shift from, like a canola oil, and all of a sudden you change that to coconut oil, the impact that you have on your body from a complete blocking type oil that congests, downregulates liver, which then sends signals to the thyroid, to something like coconut oil, which the body loves, game changer. Real simple little change you can make there that's super healthy for the body.
Awesome. Well, I think that is a great kind of full response to our question about the thyroid. I wonder if we can sneak a couple more in.
Let's do it.
All right, here is the next. My husband often eats eggs, and he talks about how good they are for us, yet when I eat eggs, they upset my stomach. Do you have any suggestions?
Okay, so this is pretty common. And I'll start by saying this. And here, even on the podcast before, I'll talk about food, about eggs being possibly the world's single best food. We're talking about a group of amino acids, all the essential amino acids that make up the protein there, and then the yolks, which are a perfect blend of fats and B vitamins. Literally, it's like brain fuel to it. So amazing. It's choline in it, which helps build the baby's brain. Get amino acids, very low in calories. So it could be the world's perfect food, quite frankly. I guess you got to like it too, but nonetheless. So the challenge here is that there are a lot of people who have challenges with eggs. And not that egg is a bad food. And I said that, I preface it to make sure people know eggs are not bad, yet sometimes people have a hard time with eggs. What does that mean? They have a food sensitivity toward eggs. If they have a full-blown allergy, that's to the protein, but usually it's a sensitivity to the actual food. And there's a couple reasons behind this. And there's a couple reasons behind this, and some of it goes pretty deep. And I'll say some of it goes all the way back to early childhood vaccines. And I'm just going to leave it at that.
Okay.
And now move that forward. And a lot of people have been eating eggs most of their lives, and all of a sudden now they just don't seem good for them anymore. And when that situation happens, I would say do this: pump the brakes. Don't force feed you. So in the event that you're in a household and your husband is eating a lot of eggs, and that might be his choice of dinner or breakfast many times a week, pause on it. Take it out of the body. Because when we have food sensitivities, one of the fastest ways to correct it is to take a holiday, is to literally take a time out from that food. So we're going to do a food elimination. There are other reasons for this as well. Oftentimes it's because we're not as good breaking down our animal proteins. So in this situation, if you're going to have a little bit of egg and you introduce an egg back into your life, or half an egg, or whatever it may be, you also are going to use a digestive enzyme, the same one that we spoke of earlier. And this will be a critical part in helping break down those proteins and break down those fats, so your body can then start to digest and absorb this. More often than not, it'll often indicate that we got to do some work on the liver. And the liver is now, for whatever reason, it has built up enough toxins and is having a response where a good, healthy food is now detrimental to the body. I'm going to take this a step farther, and this is about the quality of the egg. And this is a big one. So many people have been eating highly processed, GMO, pesticide-ridden eggs for many, many years, decades. And as a result of being exposed to that many, so bad chicken eggs are really bad for us, because those chickens are fed some of the worst, I don't even want to call them food, in the world. And as a result of that, they make really bad eggs, and people eat them week after week, year after year. And as a result of the nonstop influx of toxins through the egg itself, the body develops a sensitivity. So we have to unsensitize the body to that and then reintroduce a different product. And that new product should be a real, organic, farm-raised, pasteurized egg. There's a huge difference. So if you grab two eggs and you crack one open, there's a nice yellow yolk, yuck. If it's like orange, good. That's what it should look like. So up at our farm, my neighbor Mel, who's just awesome. Mel has his own chickens, and he's raised them since they're little chickadees. We're going to get some as well. And they run around, they eat, and they peck around on the ground all the time. And, they hide under the trees and they eat the worms and they do all that stuff. And then he brings us their eggs. So 11 months later, he brings us all these eggs, and he has copious amounts of them. And they're beautiful. They're here's what's interesting. You go to crack the egg and you got to give it a whack, because the egg shell, and that's the first sign of a good, healthy egg. And the difference between that egg, the taste and the color and the robustness of that shell is so significantly different than that pretty little white one that you get from the grocery store. So if you've had issues with eggs in the past or currently do, a couple things. One, a little bit of an elimination phase, about 30 days. When you reintroduce it with a low volume, no more than one egg at a time. Use a digestive enzyme and make sure that the quality is solid.
Awesome. Those of us who have had a chance to have a farm fresh egg, there is just no comparison, y'all. It is worth it seeking some out. If you got like a farmer's market close by where you are, delicious.
Yeah. And the beauty is, so yes, they cost more. Yeah. Even the most expensive, eggs, which I think they've gone up quite a bit right now. Let's just say they're $8 a dozen for organic and pasture raised. You get a dozen, right? So you're still getting a couple meals out of it. So it's still a phenomenal, affordable way to really have a high quality meal.
That's so awesome. Bart, I got to tell you, we have a couple minutes here and I want to slide in like 2 more questions. Are you game?
Yeah, let's do it.
Beautiful. So we have a new viewer tonight, Bob. Fun fact, he checks in and watches Bart Precourt every week. So he's a fan of brother.
Fantastic.
Bob's question tonight is excessive blockage in the nose for almost the last year. He's been using nasal sprays, just got a prescription, but he wakes up often not being able to breathe through the nose, which disrupts sleep. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, a couple of things. First of all, Bob, thanks for watching here, the Health Made Simple show. Hopefully we give you something that helps level you up. Real quickly here. So anytime I hear about waking up and you're more clogged, immediately think diet, brother. You got to think diet. And what I would challenge you to do is this: go at least a week gluten-free and dairy-free. That means ice cream at night's got to go, no bread during the day, no crackers, no nothing. Those are pro-inflammatory. And what that means to us, so your body's going to deal with most of your food at night. And while it's digested, if it has pro-inflammatory foods, you're going to develop histamine. Blood sugars are going to change a little bit and you get stuffed. I did most of my life that way. If I eat a bowl of ice cream tonight, I will be stuffed up in the morning to the point where I think I have some kind of sinus issues. And every nasal spray out there, I've done it, been down that road 100 times. And unfortunately, they don't lead to anything. Assuming you haven't. So if you know my brother, I don't know if you're in the same knucklehead group he is, because you might have broken your nose a bunch of times playing rugby or something. I don't know. So assuming there's no blockage, structural damage, and you're getting congested every night, your body's having a histamine response. And there's a 95% chance it's coming through the nutrition. So get real clean, the best that you possibly can, roll with that, and then almost try to prove me wrong where you don't start to see some changes. If you've been using those sprays for a long period of time, maybe instead of just giving it 2 weeks, give it 30 days. Because here's what I know: if you change it, you feel like a new man. If you wake up, if you get to sleep through the course of a night as a result of not having stuffed up nose, and I get it. I've had allergies and asthma the first half of my life, so I completely get what you're talking about. I'd literally wake up and the first thing I would do is have to blow my nose for the next 10 minutes. When I changed my diet, it doesn't exist anymore. So Bob, thanks for the question. Hopefully that gives you some good insight.
Beautiful, Bart. Thank you. Okay, so we have this really amazing protocol for the sun. Mm-hmm. The question coming in from Eric tonight is, are there other skin conditions that the sun protocol could also support?
Sure. So I'll roll through that real quickly here. So one of the ways that we support the skin is, especially from the sun. So there's a couple of components here. We use something called Cataplex F, and that's part of an essential fatty acid chain. And then we use Cataplex C, which is the full enzyme, not just vitamin C, but it's the full enzyme. And again, I think in the last show, we talked about how the very first ingredient is veal bone. So it's almost like a collagen product. And that's really what it is. So a lot of good vitamin C enzymes. So we have this vitamin F, we have collagen, and then we have calcium. And the reason we use all three of those, it goes like this. So vitamin F, the cataplex F, that essential fatty acid, will take the calcium out of the blood and push it and bring it into the tissues. The calcium is what is actually protecting your skin. So if you run out of calcium when you're like defending it against a lot of sun, then you have sunburn. The reason we bring the vitamin C in there, or the cataplex C, is to keep those tissues, that collagen tissue, from not breaking down, because that becomes the aging process. So those three together are phenomenal defense. Now, apply that to anything skin, quite frankly, anything. So I can use that same protocol, exact same protocol, if someone has been bit by their dog, if I want their skin to heal quicker. We want to get the calcium in there to protect it from infection. We want to get the collagen back in there with the vitamin C, get the whole full, vitamin C enzyme in there, and the vitamin F will drive that calcium in there. Same thing if someone's had a surgery or anything to do with the skin, psoriasis, eczema, all of those would benefit from that same mechanism of getting those nutrients out to the skin. So I think you said Eric asked that question. So absolutely, it'll affect and has the ability to affect all the above.
Beautiful. Those are some powerhouse supplements supporting our skin. Bart, we find ourselves somehow every week at the end of the show. And I want to thank all of our viewers and listeners and email questions and came in through Zoom and Facebook. Thank you guys so much for joining us, for like sending in your awesome questions. They are really great for us. And I'd like to ask Bart his favorite question, last question, which is, what is one step that our listeners can take towards becoming superhuman?
Yeah. So to be superhuman, we have to have super strategies. And that's really what I'm going to, the thought process. So think about developing a strategy for the next 60 days. And no doubt every week you're going to have to readjust and kind of refocus and reemphasize what that strategy is. And how do we develop strategies? Really, first, we develop our outcome, our desired outcome. And maybe it is to January 1st to maybe not gain a pound, maybe to have energy left, to just feel better than you did last year. So have a desired outcome and then develop a strategy to get there. So that's our tip. And I might repeat this one for the next 6-7 weeks in a row.
Gorgeous. Ready for that. I think it will be applicable for all of us. Thank you all so much for joining us here at the Health Made Simple show.
Of course. And thank you guys for showing up once again, and keep doing your thing, keep sharing it out, keep spreading love. If you're following us on Spotify or on Apple, wherever you like to watch your podcast, please give us a little shout out there, a little, 5-star rating would be awesome. That helps us get more views, whatnot. So, of course, we're going to continue to take deliberate action. Take deliberate action for your mind, your body, overall wellness. Y'all be awesome.